Ron Kluwer is our final speaker. He's the CEO of the Rockford Housing Authority in Rockford, Illinois. And in partnership with Etsy.com, the Rockford Authority has sought out local entrepreneurs in one of its most troubled neighborhoods. Etsy and the Rockford Authority have introduced videographers, jewelry makers, hair braiders, poets, painters, and DJs to create an educational platform that builds micro-social investment opportunities and promotes positivity throughout the neighborhood. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ron Kluwer. Cooker's right there.
So it's a bit disturbing for me to follow these speakers because I'm the cause of most of your problems, or at least my agency is. That's how it's viewed. 3 years ago, I joined the Rockford Housing Authority as a CEO. Actually, I take that back. 3 years ago, I joined as the Director of Development. David actually said something in his life changed his life. It was something small. I thought he was going to say a child. For me, that's what it was. I have 4 children, and during the time of my first 2 children, I spent a lot of it working. I'm a workaholic, I'll admit it. My wife knows it, my family knows it, everybody knows it. But I didn't want to be on the road. I didn't want to be away for my last child because I knew that this was my last time. This was my last time to be a good dad. So I was on the road looking for real estate development opportunities. That was my life. I did real estate development. I looked for opportunity, I looked for assets, I looked to build assets, and I looked to build money. That's what my job was. That's what my job is today. It's really no different. However, that job, as the housing market started to go to hell, meant I had to be on the road more because the housing market in my community had already gone to hell. The rental market, the housing market, gone. You see, the city I come from is a city of 150,000 people. 12 years ago, 2000 census, we had 30,000 people in poverty. Today we have 66,000 people in poverty. We're going the wrong way. So when I looked at how do I change, this opportunity for the Housing Authority was there. I had already met with them. I talked to them about this idea of artist housing in my private world, the time that I gave to the community when I was in town. So I had been there, I had seen things, I thought, this might be a great opportunity. So when the idea and the opportunity came together and the offer was made, I said, I have to take this. I didn't know what I was getting into. So you saw a slide up there about the Housing Authority. You saw the slide that said choice neighborhoods. That's how this started. As the Director of Development, the first thing I did was apply for a Choice Neighborhoods planning grant. The idea of planning our city to be different. Does everybody know what choice is? Some, I see some shaking, maybe not. So choice is Hope 6 on steroids. Choice is Promised Neighborhoods expanded. It's about people housing in neighborhoods. It says that we need to take a neighborhood, a troubled neighborhood, and we need to make it better, okay? Well, we're a government agency, so that means there's bureaucracy. That means people will say, okay, we need services, we need to do this, we need to do that. I said, no, step back for a moment. It's much simpler. Let's outline the plan for people. Let's tell them what we're going to do, and that is engage them to find their own solutions. We're going to listen to what they want and need, and we're going to be truthful about it. And much like speaking, public speaking, they always tell you, tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. We do that every day, and we put it in writing, and we give it to you so you can hold us accountable, okay? Because at the end of the day, as a government agency, somewhere I think there's a school, right? Maybe some of you see the results of that school. Somebody comes in, they have a need, and maybe you, working with a client, it may be the actual client, and we're rude as possible. We hand you the clipboard, we say fill it out, go sit down over there, when you're done, bring it back. And then we're going to put you on that list. You know, the one that's 6 years old to find you housing. Because certainly the housing you need today, you're still going to need 6 years from now, right? Or maybe 2 years. And if you're lucky, it might just be 6 months. So continue to hang out in your homeless shelter, continue to hang out in the disruptive environment you're in. Don't worry, we'll be there for you when your name comes up on the list. It's not how this organization is run now. So Choice Neighborhood said, focus on a neighborhood. This is ours, the outline there, and this is unfortunately a shots fired map. So as we set out to look at how do we change things and gather the data necessary for choice, the first thing I did was brought the community together. The first thing our staff did was to engage the community. And my job, because we hired a consultant to help us, was to announce the consultant and then go sit in a corner and let them do their work, right? I can't do that. So I left the podium, I let them do their work. I went and sat on the floor and colored with the kids. Because we had adults there who were going to tell us what their wants and needs are. Nobody was going to ask those children, what are your wants and needs? So I have 10 kids, ages, 5 through 12, on the floor with me coloring. Do you know what the answer was when I said, what do you need in your housing? Anybody have a guess? Every one of them, stop the shooting. This map shows how dangerous it is. In fact, if you look at School Street under the ST, that's where our property is. Oops, sorry, wrong direction. Our stories were in the paper, the stories of our people, the stories of our neighborhood, the stories of the West Side. The West Side, that's where those people live. The community didn't want to deal with an issue of concentrated poverty and concentrated race, and I agree with Jeremy. Peel that Band-Aid off. Let's talk about it. Okay, federal statutes say we're not supposed to do that, but we as a community did it, and we're undoing it. Unfortunately, the stories in Rockford don't stop with the local media. Nationally, we're the third most miserable, I think is what Forbes called us. We're 9th most dangerous city in the United States, and when, these labels go on and on and on. So we got sick of the labels. I don't know who did this graphic, but it's pretty much it's a sad indication. When you start to label folks, neighborhoods, people with problems, they begin to replicate those problems. So we said we're tired of it. We're tired of the negativity. We gathered 260 data points. We're going to continue to maintain those data points over time to make sure they're changing. But we will no longer focus on what's wrong in our stories. We're going to start to focus on what's right in our stories. So we created a statement. This group of folks who'd been in the room together for months decided they've had enough. And so we said now, all too often neighborhoods become known by headlines, statistics, and obstacles, but no longer. From today forward, we believe in creativity and opportunity and power and motivation in ourselves. From today forward, we will promote, discover, believe, and mix it up. So we branded the effort. We heard this earlier, brand the effort. Not the agency. There's nothing on here about the Housing Authority. We had folks freaked out by that. Oh my God, this is a Rockford Housing Authority effort. You don't have our name on there. No, it's a community effort. It's about the community. So we set out to look for talent. And we did it in a way that matched up with the needs that came out of our neighborhood. The needs of our folks, when we asked them to rate them, were 1, it was a tie, jobs and violence. You know where education is on that list of top 10? It's number 10. The value of education is not there. However, what we decided is if we can brand this thing, if we can live up to eliminating violence or reducing it during the time, and we can provide jobs, we're partway on the path. So we took 46 neighbors and public housing residents and said, we're going to go out and survey the neighborhood. We're going to survey for talent. We're going to survey for fun. We're going to survey for excitement and passion. Okay, we're good at surveying, right? Housing authorities, service agencies, sometimes I like to poke ourselves in the eye and challenge that. We can survey the hell out of people, can't we? We ask them about their education. We ask them about every horrible thing that's ever happened in their lives. we reversed that and said, we want to know what's good. And we want to know what you want to do with it. We want to know how you want to use that and how you're going to display that, because we're going to use it to change our stories. So we had unusual suspects. Who's typically in a room when you're talking about creating these programs? Who's typically in the room when you look at making change? In our community, we say it's the old white guys with ties. So sorry, old white guys with ties. I count myself as one of them, but I choose to not wear the tie most often. It's not a reflection of the community. It's not a reflection of the people we serve. So we got the people we serve in the room again and said, how do we take the surveys, which, by the way, 1,200 of them, 1,200 surveys taken door to door, again, by our residents. Because what's going to happen if I showed up at your door, if you were a client in the worst neighborhood in town, and said, hey, I want to survey you? I'm not going to get honest results, right? However, if your neighbor's showing up, if your friend's showing up, they're going to get the honest results. So we brought those all back together and we said, how do we make those results into something meaningful? How do we begin to leverage them? Because I go back to my old days of real estate development. You know, two things in real estate development. One, you're always looking to improve the assets you have because that's the cheapest way to get your return on investment. And the other thing is you're always looking to use other people's money, right? OPM. So for you guys, you know, we're looking to use your money. But that's not a bad thing, is it? Because it's our folks who need your service. So by looking to you to use your services, we actually get a front door for each other. You don't have to go out and market them, right? Why aren't we doing referrals? So we started doing those. We started doing creative referrals. And the whole time this was going on, our mayor actually tweeted the CEO of Etsy, Chad Dickerson, said, our community has failed in manufacturing. That was our lifeblood. That's how we have the conditions we have today, because manufacturing left. What if we could leverage Etsy? Etsy is a creative online outlet for artisan goods. What if we could use our manufacturers, our people, to be independent entrepreneurs? When Etsy first started 5 years ago, they had about $150,000 in annual sales. Last year it was $950 million. It's anticipated to be at $1.7 billion next year. Why can't we be part of that? And why can't we leverage those creative folks? So Etsy became highly engaged in this idea. They showed up, we did trainings. We talked about the creative things folks do and how do you earn or learn, or both. And then how do you train somebody else? So it works, at least on the surface. It's new. We're going to continue to grow this. We are the first city in the nation to have an Etsy partnership, a municipality designed to produce entrepreneurs and artisans to make money, to feel good about what they do. So Juanita is one of our public housing residents. She lives in the neighborhood. This woman is amazing. There's plenty of video out there. There are greater expansions of her story that I'd encourage you to look at. Our City, Our Story is an online collection of videos telling people's stories. Hers is there. It's called Opportunity Knocks. I'd challenge you to go look at it. Her story is incredible. She says all she wants to do is make women beautiful because that's what every woman wants. And she says she's going to do it because people told her she would never amount to anything. She's quite a story, and she's a lot of everything. Bill lives in one of our other public housing sites. His son told him, Dad, you know, the stuff you do with wood, this woodworking, wasting your time. Nobody's ever going to want any of this stuff. Bill just sold a large order to a home store in Chicago and opened his shop last week. Jamie, public housing resident, artist, she had her first gallery exhibition last weekend. She also has an online shop that's starting. And the stories continue and continue. This is Arts Place. It's a youth effort by our Arts Council. These are our kids. And they continue more. So this all started out, if you remember, with the idea of real estate and neighborhood change, correct? So what happens when you free people's minds to think differently? What happens when you give them the tools to say, we're really, really serious about making change in your neighborhood, but the change you want? They develop visions. This came from our neighborhood. This came from our residents. Now, is it possible that this can be done? Yes. Last year, in the midst of all of this, our residents turned out to vote. So what's that mean? It means they're getting $23 million in new road revenue to get roads through their community. It means the school district passed a referendum that's going to invest $38 million in the schools in their neighborhoods. It works. Something to consider. This is what we have on the back of all of our new mix. Propaganda, if you want to call it, marketing material, messaging, branding, because we need to meet our folks where they are, do we not? So no fancy language, something everybody understands. So I asked the question earlier, does this work? Yes, we believe it does. We also believe that the data from an income approach is highly effective and going in the right direction. When we started this program in January of 2011, this site where we focused on, the public housing site, our average annual income per unit, housing unit, was $1,100 per year. $1,100 per year, not per month. Today it's $6,700 per year. Our folks are still poor. I'm not saying we're lighting the world on fire, but it's 210 units times an increase of over $5,000, which means there's more than $1 million our folks are bringing home. Think about doing things differently. Think about unusual suspects, and think about unusual partnerships. Thank you.
Great job, Ron.
Well done.
So Ron, one of the very first things we talked about today is one of these disruptive forces of demanding impact.
Sure.
And I'm wondering, when you launch an effort like yours, where does the community at large first sense that impact? Is it in the galleries? Is it on the shooting map? Where's the footprint first start to appear?
Well, it's not appearing to the extent we want it to yet, but it is in the reduction of violence. We've seen an 81% decrease in violence, which is good. However, to me, I think back of those kids and we're talking to in the beginning, it's an 81% reduction. If one shot is fired, it's too many. Our kids shouldn't learn how to hide in the bathtub so they could live.
Great. Ron Kluwer, everybody. Thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
Great job.